Kevin De Bruyne will be leaving City. That is confirmed. There's still a bit of uncertainty over the future of Ilkay Gundogan. Now, Pep Guardiola has recently confirmed that a one-year contract extension has been triggered for Gundogan because the midfield has played a certain amount of games for the club across all competitions. He's played, I think, 43 times since rejoining. So that's a lot more than what many, including himself, would have expected this season. However, amid interest from Galatasaray and a return to Turkey, where his parents are from, Guardiola said that he cannot be sure fully whether Gundogan will actually remain at City next season. So still possible he could leave as part of
Yeah.
this squad rebuild in the summer. What have you made of Gundogan since returning to City, and do you think ultimately he could or will stay at City for at least another season?
Um, he started really poorly. I think it's fair to say he had a bit of a disaster of the first few months, even being honest. I always felt a bit sorry for him. I think he was never meant to come in and just play every single week, given his age and given, the expectations of, his role. I think it was very obvious that he was meant to be the guy who plays every second or third game, sits alongside Rodri every now and then, not in place of Rodri. Was allowed to sort of have legs around him and be a little bit more versatile with how we use him. But he came in and with no Rodri and an aging De Bruyne with injuries, there was a lot of slack, a lot of creative slack that he had to pick up in defensive slack, and he just wasn't ready for it, if I'm being honest. A year in La Liga where he'd be the first to admit as well, the pace was a lot slower, and he came back, and Guardiola said that Gundogan had remarked to him just how much faster everything is in the Premier League these days compared to just 18 months ago when he left Manchester City. Um, and I do feel it took him by surprise. I don't think he'd keep up with the pace. However, I don't think it's a coincidence that since February the 1st, Gundogan's been good. When City have had the legs of Nico Gonzalez and the younger players like Nico O'Reilly and then Savinho and Doku and Marmoush have come in as well. All these players have been playing more regularly, and City's side just feels more balanced and it feels like we can run a bit better. And I saw the stats to back it up. City are winning the second balls a lot better now across the pitch. One of the best teams in the league now are doing that, where previously we were one of the poorest. And I think as a result, Gundogan is focusing on being Gundogan, and he looks sharper. He looks more confident. I think there's an element of him catching up as well to the pace of the Premier League finally. But that's Pete Gundogan for what it's worth. If you follow Gundogan throughout his career, he's always been the second half of the season guy. For whatever reason, Gundogan comes alive in February onwards. I don't know why he does it, but he does. He's always a bit slow to start, and then he just finds his rhythm. And I think he's doing it again right now. So his contract has been automatically renewed. I do think there's an argument to suggest that we maybe still do move on. But the Guardiola was saying after the Palace game that, one of the most important things is availability. And if you're not available, if you're injured, we can't rely on you, then you're going to have to move on. When you run that through the idea of Gundogan, you realize, well, Gundogan's never injured, really. He's constantly available. And of course, he's not going to be a starter every single week, but his experience, his leadership, and if Guardiola truly does want a bigger squad next season, which I think he's learned the lesson there. If you can get this guy, he can play multiple positions and he can give you 7 out of 10 most weeks and will obviously be at a higher level with younger players around him than he was this season, been last season, next season. I think you can keep him because I understand the logic of keeping him. So I think there's nothing to lose from keeping Gundogan around for another year as part of the squad, not necessarily part of the first 11.